Go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and unto the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's bow our heads in prayer. O God of all places and all people, of this town and each of its residents, we come together in common prayer and common purpose this evening. Lift up our concerns, to address our opportunities, to honor our calling. May we be ever aware of your guiding presence. As we continue to celebrate our nation's history, may we respect the freedoms that shape our lives, both freedoms promised and freedoms achieved. We give thanks for the freedom of speech. We give thanks for the sacrifices others have made on our behalf. We give thanks for the call to serve in response. In your presence, we express special concerns tonight. May we not forget the needs of our children and youth, especially during these summer months. As a community and as a council, help us find ways to share with them the opportunities once shared with us. We all have debts to pay. We pray for the well-being of our fellow councilman Samuel Dixon and look forward to his healthy return. We remain grateful for this day and for this gathering. May we strive as a council to ever honor our calling to lead by example. In your presence we pray. Amen.
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 Okay, you've all had a chance to read over the minutes for the special meeting on June the 27th, our regular meeting for June the 13th, and our closed session meeting on June the 27th. Do we have any corrections or changes to that? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, tonight will be something new for us. Our public comments come at the beginning of the meeting. So do we have any public comment? Anybody that wants to? Okay, we have two people that signed up for it. John Grant. Every damn time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I just wanted to get an update. First of all, I want to thank Council for getting the sign changed on King Street. So now that it's parking pretty much all the time down that street. I was wondering if there was any update on when the spacing is going to be repainted to signify where the spaces are now. If we're moving the actual loading zone up further as we proposed. And also if there's any indication of when we might be doing some work on the back. I sent you an email the other day about there's a metal stop in the middle of the parking lot that I know has hit at least one car, so.
And I'll be glad to answer that. So I did speak with the Public Works Director last week, and they were getting together to actually deploy to do that. I paused that because I wanted to see the final plans of what was being mapped out first. They had all intentions of doing it last week, but I delayed both of those till I got back to make sure that it met all the parking requirements and spacing and everything. So they're ready to go.
Okay.
And we'll get all that addressed very shortly.
Now, have they said anything to you about a water line needing to be replaced in that area?
When I walked through there this afternoon, I noticed it looked like there was one water line that had already been repaired, and I'm not sure if it's the same one you're talking about.
Okay.
But I did see cutouts through the concrete where it looked like something had been rerouted and then taken back over.
Okay, they may have done that then, because when we were doing some work on the building, we could not shut off the water to the building because the valve, the city's valve, had broken. And I know that they were gonna fix it, but we'd been told they were gonna have to dig up a
I'll find out more. I'll make sure that's part of the repairs when they do the parking.
Okay, great, thanks so much.
All right.
Okay, next is Susan Ingles.
I thank you for moving comment to the beginning of the meeting. What I have on my mind is about the social district that y'all are considering, and I think making decision on this evening. I see huge opportunity for some of our businesses. I see opportunity for tourism development. I want us to be sure that such a social district will serve all our citizens. I want to be sure that we're putting citizens first when we make a decision that's going to change the character of this particular district in some way. So I hope it will be. I know all of y'all are committed to serving everybody. And I hope that that will be evident in what's decided about the social district.
Why would it not be?
I have visited places like, we're cautioned to avoid mistakes of places like Charleston and Nashville. I have visited those places and would not want to live surrounded by some of the social activity that goes on in those places. So I think considering Edentonians is an appropriate priority for the town in making changes to policies.
And we think the same thing,
I thought so.
believe it or not.
I thought so.
Thank you. That's the only ones we have signed up.
I didn't sign up, but I didn't realize we could
Okay.
ask questions.
Go ahead.
I just would like to get an update on the Hinton and what's going on there. I think, from what I've heard, they might have secured the grant, and any updates on what they're thinking or what is going on would be appreciated.
So I actually spoke with representatives this afternoon. We did get power back restored in that last week. They are getting ready to have all the interior lighting put back into place. As far as the grant process, they did get the Part 2 with conditions back from National Park Service, which is the next step in receiving the historic tax credits for that project. They're very optimistic about getting that back. Typically what you would see is just another round of questioning coming back on the application, other than basically marking that Part 1 was complete, and now we're at Part 2 where it's, here's the requirements, here's what we're interested in, here's the conditions to satisfy Part 2. So they're back in negotiations with them on some of the historic nature. We talked about HVAC and electrical and historic buildings. They want to make sure they fully understand that. That's the most recent update I have from them. I do know they had the locks installed on the rear gate at the back. They've shared that code with us. That way, if administration or PD needs to enter the building for any types of concerns. And we also talked through a lot of the exterior lighting this afternoon. I was assured that the contractor would be back next week to start on the exterior lighting as well as the interior lighting to get that space lit back up. That's as most recent update as I have, and it's hot off the presses from 3 o'clock.
Corey, I know that you were putting pressure on them to do something before you redid that back parking lot. Where do they stand on that?
So both options they have presented us with for the hotel renovations, the parking requirements and the parking expectations still stand. As soon as they can start the electrical updates they need for the actual hotel build versus just the simply lighting of the structure that's there now, they'll be held to that same standard. We've already worked through the process from them for the lower parking deck. We just received engineering plans back from our engineers to do the redesign for that. We're hoping a late summer, early fall kind of demo replace time period, which would handle the lower parking. But as far as the upper parking, that still very much depends on which model of the hotel renovation that they do.
Are they still talking about 80 rooms?
I think they have it as well as an alternative option available at this time.
Because I think we'll all be sitting here 10 years from now if they're trying to raise 30 million and build 80 rooms. That's not gonna happen.
And the conversation we had is a lesser cost version of the same existing footprint.
Okay, thank you.
Corey, I've
Bill, I
got,
think it's been a long 8 years since we've started this project, but I think Corey would probably agree that we've have made more progress in the last 3 months than we have in the previous 8 years. Say yes.
Corey, I've got two questions to follow up Mr. Richard's comments and his questions. When you speak of part two of the process, how many parts are there to this little piece?
2 parts.
Yeah.
That's the entire National Park Service, 2 steps to get through their review. Part 1 is a very preliminary initial review. Well, it's not really, it's preliminary, but it is very in the weeds about the bird's eye view of the project. The part 2 is way more in the weeds. It's in the details around certain items when you talk about electrical upgrades and HVAC upgrades and roofing repair upgrades and how you do those historically correct. And those are really in the details. That's when you start developing engineering plans to say, well, this is how we're going to satisfy that preservation piece as well as the current technology needs for X number of rooms. So
And
part
the-
2 is very intricate.
And the second piece of that is probably more of a request than a question, but their leadership team had indicated to us that they would come back to us back at a date certain within 45 days or so to give us an update. And I would just request that you get back in touch with them and set that and let it be in the form of a public meeting where the public can come and hear.
But
Corey?
they're not going to work on, we're not going to spend any money on that parking lot until they start remodeling the building, right?
On the upper
Yes,
parking
sir.
lot, that's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
Corey made that pretty clear to them,
Okay.
that we were not gonna, it was about giving them some additional parking spaces, and we're not gonna do that until we see some
Action.
action, exactly.
Corey, in the meantime, are we making that area secure? With
So-
fencing, lighting,
So-
windows put back in, doors locked?
So yes, so part of the conversation this afternoon was specific styles of exterior lighting that we were requesting being added to the building. That includes, beyond what was already added for the street lights from utilities.
Right.
We talk about the interior of the fence with some uplighting to light that area up
Yeah.
to see if folks are in there, as well as
Are there some windows still out?
there are a couple places, I only took a look at the north end of the building today to make sure the power was in to get that update before we had it off.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have anybody else signed up. So next on the agenda is a public hearing for the closure of a 25-foot alley on Hughes Street, 809, 811, 813, 815 North Broad Street. And Adam and Elizabeth are here tonight to answer any questions. Corey, you want to take that from here? Or?
We do need a motion to go into the public hearing.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Dwayne?
So this is very similar to what CVS did with the closure of the 25-foot alley behind there when they started construction. This is behind 809, 811, 813, and 815, which encompasses the old chicken kitchen. So it's kind of that buffer zone between the railroad and the undeveloped paper street that was there. The town currently maintains it. We see no issue with allowing the adjoining property owner, which would be Q Properties LLC, which is owned by Adam and Elizabeth Hughes, for their benefit and upkeep of it. At this point, it'll never be anything the town can benefit from. So it's kind of they're requesting for, their storage and expansion kind of thing, so.
So we did go through this process only once before, when we worked through with the developers for CVS, and we did reach out to Hood. And if you notice a little bit later under new business after the public hearing, the way these properties are allotted, those paper streets are allowed to go back to those previous property owners when those street right-of-ways, those undeveloped street right-of-ways are dissolved. So the idea of the public hearing tonight is to address any public concern that we have there. The town has been maintaining this area for quite some time, it and the railroad. It's really of no use to us. It's really a dead end now. It doesn't serve any purpose for us. We still have a utility easement to come through there if there was any repairs or anything we need to make with the sewer system to keep eyes on that. But as far as the actual maintenance and owning the 25-foot section, there's really no benefit for us. We have worked with Adam and Elizabeth on this. The survey was included in the packet. The way these properties are originally set aside, they do supersede the property owner's original survey. So what this allows us to do is simply return the property as it would have been without the paper street being there. So in the eyes of the town, these undeveloped roads are very much net zero when you talk about a loss.
Yeah.
And also, in addition to Adam and Elizabeth's request, we honored CVS's request, and if I recall, we've been kind of undertaking an effort whenever we find a paper street that's no value to us and really is more of a burden to us. We've been trying to take care of those things over the last couple of years to kind of clean up our street maps. So it's kind of in line with what we've been doing the last couple of years.
Exactly.
Corey, has the railroad track been abandoned? Can we claim that?
I don't know the answer. I have had conversations with the company that's leasing from North and Southern to try to figure out how we can approach acquiring that property. Those conversations have yet to be had. And all intents and purposes, from where it's at on North Broad all the way down, that old track is abandoned. Now, is that anything that we've received in an official document from Norfolk Southern? No, but just through word of mouth from their lessees and actually with some conversations with the rail masters, we know that there's no intentions of that being put back into service. We did have conversations with their partner about how we could work together, three entities, the town, the lessee company, and Norfolk Southern, into trying to make some improvements for walking paths or potentially some type of bike path as an improvement. Because a lot of residents do use those old abandoned railroad tracks as just a way of walking from place to place. So it kind of makes sense. Have you had that official talk with Norfolk Southern about acquiring the property? No, sir.
How about us just do that? We're taking care of it. We don't send them a bill, do we? Anybody else, we would send a bill for taking care of their property if it was in violation of ordinances. Either we send them a bill or.
And Councilman Coleman, based on my experience in dealing with railroad companies over the last 30 years, I think our better course would be try to get together with them and the adjoining property owners to get a joint use agreement on the walking trails. They hold on to those right-of-ways even if they don't need them. It's like an act of Congress trying to get them to officially and legally release them. So I get what you're saying, but if there's an easier way to do it and accomplish the goal of getting walking trails, I would recommend the easier way.
I think the goal is to get the walking trail.
Yes, I agree.
But Elizabeth and Adam are here with us tonight to, I guess, answer whatever questions council may have about the property. And that's also an opportunity for anyone from the general public to.
Okay, does anyone from the general public have a question of Adam and Elizabeth. They're here to answer any questions, or Corey, or anybody. Hearing none, we'll move on. We'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, the next item is our social district ordinance and management plan. And
And I would move to open the public hearing on that particular
Okay.
item regarding the social district ordinance and management plan.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we are in a public hearing for the social district ordinance.
So I apologize, last meeting I had to leave for another obligation. But I just wanted to answer any questions that I could on this social district management plan. I have been working diligently over the last year, really not jumping into it too quickly. We went and visited several other municipalities that had them. We sat in on multiple conferences and listened to upwards of 10 other municipalities that have them. We put the survey out to really gauge public input, and that's where we kind of really honed the hours, and we built a team of 4 or 5 individuals just with different ideas. It's not just one person coming up with this, it was a whole team. We try to look at every aspect of it to see what the negatives were, positives. We really put it broadly based on the survey and what we saw people wanted. They are amendable. This is not a hard document. So we're open for suggestions, anything, but it has been over a year undertaking with this.
Did you involve Chief King in your discussions?
Chief King has been involved. We've also, the ambassadors are going to be heavily involved, the
Okay.
downtown ambassadors. People are still going to have to follow state law. Not every day do we have a legislation that actually gives us freedom. They usually restrict it and regulate it. So this is almost purely based on economic development, the rights and freedoms of individuals coming and visiting downtown. They're still going to have to follow state law. You still can't overserve people. This is basically step 2 in a 4-step process. Step 1 being, the drafting of everything, the survey. Step 2 is getting it passed or amended. Step 3 would be ordering signs to go up where people cannot go past them. They would be stuck in a clearly defined area. And step 4 just will be implementation and rollout. So we're only at step 2 here, just trying to get the fine tuning down. That's kind of how we are at this point. So just wanted to, alleviate any concerns. If anybody has any, they can reach out to me and ask. And this is very much amendable, and we just seek, counsel, anything they have to say, public, and we can roll from there.
Anybody have any further questions? How about the public? Anybody out in the public have any questions of Dwayne? Okay.
I don't recall when the survey came out that the outline of the area was actually included in the survey, was it?
I believe it was.
It was.
It was? Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Because I obviously didn't see that part, because I don't understand why King Street and Eden Street are incorporated into the social district.
It was very much based on zoning, commercial downtown zoning to be specific. So any empty building we had, we looked at it as an economic development tool. Number 1 primarily being the Sears and Peebles building. We've met with a couple different people who are interested in that. And the only reason why they're interested in it is because it's going to be in a potential social district. we're basing it off of people being able to generate foot traffic to businesses. So if we can generate foot traffic by implementing something as simple as a social district, which is for people to have freedom to walk around, we kind of just drew that line to where it's not going to be impacting the parks, any residences, and we've made sure to have contact and everything with all the businesses that are existing downtown, to kind of engage their ideas and everything. I've really leaned on Chess with doing that, the Destination Downtown Director. It's a lot of the times it's hard for me to get out of the office to be able to make those conversations. But we really have engaged, or he has engaged, what the business owners are feeling as well. So that's kind of, to have a long answer to that, it's based on the zoning of the properties, is why we've cut it off at certain areas. So if,
Well, and I'm perfectly fine with going up and down Broad, but there's nothing on King Street that even remotely resembles a food or alcoholic beverage utility. And neither one of those businesses, or technically 4 businesses, 5 if you count the gym, that are operating on that street would be conducive to that.
and it's not necessarily, we want, if somebody wants to stop in or somebody wants to have an event, if King Street, I don't know if King Street Marketplace has events or not, if they want to have an event, to incorporate, a special event such as like a wedding at the Green, just to have someone, to be able to purchase a beverage at Surf, Wind and Fire and walk down and throw a Frisbee with their dog, just kind of a little bit of freedom. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. If we can definitely X out that area, if it is cause for concern. But we felt like it was the best opportunity to kind of go large based on what the survey had to say, than to really restrict it to 1 or 2 blocks. Because people aren't going to be able to walk up and down of a roadway. They're only going to be or in a parking lot. They're not going to be behind. They're restricted not to go in that parking lot behind all the businesses. So they're really restricted to the businesses and the sidewalk. So, and the crosswalks. So you can't jaywalk with a beer. They're gonna, like I said, have to still follow state laws and this ordinance that was drawn up, taking in careful consideration of stuff like that.
And
So,
one thing to add here when we talk particularly about these 2 pieces, so when we talk about the West Eden Street, there is opportunity for some vacant buildings there to potentially be occupied with a business that may want to participate during a sip and shop or some type of event, whether they serve wine as you're walking, from the parking lot and it's your first stop. And when we talk about the East King Street section, really the reasoning from my perspective to include those was the fact that we host special events. So some of the management plan, where we have groups like Malcolm's or Surf, Wind and Fire that come back to host an event and they need a resolution from council to have a first Sunday food truck event, that space would already be defined in the district. It would be a place that simply the administration could approve the special events permit that would have an alcohol check on it, because now it's defined within the social district. It would eliminate the need to come back to council for a resolution, just as if someone hosted a wedding on the Green. They would still come to council for a resolution for alcohol to be served on that section. So that's why, just from clearly a permitting need, that King Street piece was added to be able to really host special events. Do any of the businesses there currently now serve alcohol or plan to? Probably not. But do events happen right on King Street where alcohol is served from a Broad Street business? Yes. And so,
And I guess my counterpoint to that is, when those events are held, they're held on Sunday. When our business would not be open, King Street Marketplace is not open. So it doesn't impact us as far as people walking up and down the street with alcohol. I guess that's our concern, is the type of atmosphere we're trying to generate for those particular businesses does not involve alcohol and it's not conducive.
in the management plan, we have designed basically window clings or stickers that would go in each individual business. Businesses would still have to register with the town to be considered, being able to be a part of the district. But if you wish not to have anything in your business, there's a sticker that says that it is not permitted in this area or in this business. There's some that say it is welcome, you know, but we don't sell it. And then there's some that say that we sell it and we welcome. So it's kind of, we tried to incorporate, because we've thought about that too. Speaking with the many municipalities I dealt with, there was minimal to zero police interactions. It's not going to turn, or in no area has it turned into like Mardi Gras, you know, or anything like that, where people are just, you know, free going and all that kind of
I'll be
stuff.
honest, I'm not
Yeah.
concerned about that
Yeah.
as much as I am, especially with King Street. You've got the alleyway between our business and the law firm. You've got the alleyway between the law firm and the hint that go directly back into a parking lot. There are people that are constantly gonna be trying to cut through there to either get to, the governor's pub or to get to their vehicles. And I know you said the ambassadors are gonna be involved. Are they gonna be provided with police powers in order to cite people, or?
They're basically going to be relaying any information they see to the police. ALEs, once it's passed, the ordinance and the management plan, once it's passed, it has to go to the ABC Commission. So it's all going to be registered with the ABC Commission, which, you know, I don't know if anybody's seen ALE officers around. Most of the time they're undercover, but they will be out and about in these districts. You know, there's going to be a
And
security.
they are out and about. They
Yes.
are out and about. I
Yeah,
know
they-
that,
they-
yeah.
Yeah. So, we're not going to have security that's going to be relaying messages to law enforcement. It's going to be clearly defined. Law enforcement presence is probably going to pick up in the downtown area in certain times. And, you know, ALE presence, you know, state law enforcement presence will be more present downtown as well. So, that's kind of how I felt and how other places, you know, we're not, you know, one of the concerns is that we're not a college town. Well, we don't market ourselves as a college town either. You know, we market ourselves on our history, you know, being able to, you know, especially downtown area, foot traffic, different things like that. So, I mean, it's not going to be marketed that way. You know, it's going to be a very soft rollout. And it could, if it turns out not to be something that everybody wants and we see problems with it, it can be rescinded and being done away with. But if you don't try it, I feel like we'll never know kind of the benefits that we could see from it. That is kind of.
And I'll be honest, my wife and I disagree on this. She's very pro social district from the standpoint of special events, but not around the clock, you know, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. Have you all modified the times in it?
They're open. What I did is, like I said, that was the very last thing I put in this ordinance in the management plan because I really wanted to see what the survey said. The large majority, I believe, was a Monday through Sunday from, I believe it was 11 or 12 to 9 p.m. So that's all amendable. That was solely based on public input.
And Dwayne and John, I can help both of you. The very next agenda item is committee reports, and the administrative committee has as its first agenda item this item. And if you can stick around, it'll address a lot of your concerns.
Okay, and I had planned on it.
Yeah, I feel certain we'll be able to, at that point in time in the agenda, we'll be able to answer a lot of your concerns.
One question, municipalities that you surveyed, were they like-sized to Edenton?
There are some that are smaller than Edenton. There are
Okay.
some like a Greensboro and Raleigh and Greenville that, you know, trump us in size, you know, but we ran across a few of them that we spoke to that is very much based on the history, tourism, different things like that, that, you know, it's only been beneficial to them, you know, from an economic development standpoint. And like I said, people think it's a, you know, some sort of, you know, let's try it out and everything. I mean, I really think it could be beneficial. I could be wrong. You know, it's just, you know, it's one of them things I saw, you know, the benefits other people were having, you know, and why not try them ourselves? It's basically.
This could always
kinda-
be rescinded
It
at
could
some
always
point
be
in time.
rescinded,
Right.
yes. Mhm.
All right, just the last question I had. You said it's not gonna incorporate the parks, but didn't the original plan go down to the water?
So, let me refresh I want to see what
You
you're
need to get ahead, yeah.
speaking about.
So I think I can.
Colonial Park is cut out of the initial
Yeah.
plans itself. I think it does go over, what is that, Sunfish Park? It does include that, obviously, because of the restaurant that's there, but, I mean, it's not in Colonial Park at all. I have the map pulled up.
Yeah, and the reason why we really wanted to connect our downtown and the restaurants, you know, we want to see every restaurant do well and not just single out one or two. So we really wanted, you know, to include Herringbone in the I know it's kind of off to itself, but we've X'd out a lot of this area just so, you know, people aren't in the parking lot, which they can't be anyway because of the ordinance. We didn't want it around our children, you know, or inside the fenced-in area of the park. You know, it's kind of in, you know, the areas that would best benefit from it is how, you know, that map was drawn.
And one more thing to add there, kind of the same sidebar before. We host art council events in the Dock Street parking area that require a resolution, a special permit approved by council to host an event on public street. We got an event July 22nd being hosted by TDA that needs a special permit and a resolution approved by council to host an event. We have weddings on the Barker House. That location was also included. So the reason that those locations were added, once again, just like the section of the courthouse green was, to simplify the process when someone comes to us for an event, to have that special use events permit to check the alcohol piece and say it is in social district, yes or no. If yes, you don't have to come back here. If no, you still come back there and do the process. Those events are sporadic, they're very seasonal, and that was really, I think, the idea from an administrative standpoint to push those edges, to include those in that initial map. Again, that's all revisable. We can monitor that, change that appropriately, but that's what we wanted this conversation for.
Okay, any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go out of.
So moved, Mayor.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're out of public hearing. And next, we'll move into our committee reports, and our first one is Administrative Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman High.
Thank you, Mayor Stallings. As I indicated to Mr. Grant, the first agenda item for our committee is the social district and the consideration of the same. In talking with committee members and also other council members, we felt it would be best to hear the public comment tonight, hear further from Dwayne as we have, and then to allow council and the committee to consider fully the comments we've heard, the comments we continue to receive from constituents, and come back with a full discussion regarding our concerns at our committee meetings later this month, with the goal of having this ready, hopefully for a vote at the August regular meeting. And the council, from what I can tell, is in general agreement with the idea and concept of such a social district, but share in some of the concerns that Mr. Grant and the other people have emailed us about as it relates to geography, the dates that it would be applicable, and also the times that it would be applicable. So it seems that it's still a work in progress, and we should be able to have a fuller report and discussion at our committee meetings later on in July, again with the goal of having a vote on it in August. But we feel like we need some time to consider public comment and tweak it and bring it back as a tighter document in August.
Thank you.
The second item that we have should be fairly brief. We talked at our last meeting about the need for a residency requirement for our electrical department to assist in terms of on being on call or emergencies. Corey Gooden had let us know that to get experienced electrical department workers and linemen, we generally have to go outside the general area, and that perhaps the residency requirement should be extended to a 45-minute time period. So if anybody's working with the electrical department, they would need to be able to respond to a call to come in within 45 minutes. And I think the closest associate's degree that you can get for a lineman and other electrical department work is in Martin Community College, is that right? So we're finding a lot of our applicants for the electrical department from the Williamson area, and hopefully we can attract more qualified people by extending the residency requirement to 45 minutes. So the administrative committee recommends that we amend our residency requirement to include a 45-minute call time, and I would put that in the form of a motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mayor Stallings. That concludes our reports.
Thank you, sir. And the next is new business, and the first one is a resolution for partial closure of Paper Street, Hughes Street, which we talked about earlier for the prior chicken kitchen. Anybody have anything to say for or against that?
And so just one thing to add, Mayor, this was the same legal documentation that the town used in its previous endeavor with the CBS folks for the alleyway to be closed. We did work with Hood on getting this version updated and drafted for these four parcels that we spoke about during the public hearing, and action would be required.
Okay. We have a motion and I think we had a second, did we? Yeah. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I don't think we had a motion on that one at all.
I'm sorry?
We didn't have a motion on that.
We did have a motion because Hack made it.
No, the last, that was for the.
We can do it again.
We can do it again.
We can do it again. I make a motion, we approve the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, but all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Are we happy now? Okay. All right. Number 2 is a contract agreement, Alliance Code Enforcement, and Dwayne, that's you, I believe.
So this is a contract agreement with Alliance Code Enforcement. They're going to help supplement our code enforcement needs as we have them now. We have one code enforcement officer works 1 day a week. We hear the public outcry of vacant houses, air properties, minimum housing. When you start getting in to a lot of these, and there's quite a few legalities and much time has to be spent on the process. So we felt it necessary to really look outside the area to see what other municipalities had been doing. We met this group at one of the league conferences in Concord. They will be contracted 365 days from July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 for 16 hours a week to help supplement and help out our building inspectors and current code enforcement. So that's where we're at right now, and we definitely see the need, and they came and rode around with us last week and were surprised at the amount of vacant minimum housing that we actually have in town. So
Are they working with other neighbors? Municipalities?
They just started in Southport.
Okay.
They have a strong presence in the Raleigh, Winston-Salem area. That's mainly where they're headquartered out of. They
Is
will
this
be
sort of a first in Northeast North Carolina for them?
first in
Okay.
Northeast North Carolina. They've been excited. They've been wanting to get out here. They came. They love Edenton. Want to have the same ideals we have and helping it get better. So excited to have the opportunity to work with them and see what they can help us out with and into the future.
And so,
It's 16 hours a week, right? Does that go significantly move things forward in terms of our ability to address housing issues where we are now?
It will. One of the things that Corey and I, when we were at this conference, we made it a thing to talk to people that they work, like administrators and also elected officials where they work at. I think we spoke to 2 or 3 of them. They spoke highly of them. The efficiency they have in the mailings and the hearings, it will free up a lot of time to help move a lot of these properties that have been stagnant and in a list for so long to move forward.
So one thing to add, Roger, when you think about the contract for 16 hours times 52 weeks to get a total, itemized hours versus unit price per hour to figure out a dollar number, we know at least initially up front that once we start with the properties that have appeared to be the most problematic, the ones that have been lingering longer in this never-ending Zacchaeus cycle that we call them, there will be some front loading that will happen where these inspectors and code enforcement experts will be in for longer periods of time, for weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, and as we start developing that process, and we can start to taper that to help our part-time administrative code enforcement and nuisance enforcement agent to really help with some of the administrative role to make sure things are out, make sure things are handled. For us, it's really been a challenge by not having someone with the inspections, which deals specifically with housing violations for building codes, on staff. That's really been a challenge for us, and that's the big piece for us to learn is we understand the nuisance piece, we understand a lot of the ordinance piece on how to fix some of those items, but when it comes to those type of decisions, those have to be made from someone from an inspections background certified through the state. So we hope to, at front, start with some of the more problematic, help develop the process, some training for us to really try to fine-tune how we proceed going forward. We've shared this with the county. They think there's some opportunity also for them to learn as we kind of go through this educational phase right up first, where we're really front-loading those hours. And it may be 40 hours a week for the first 10 weeks. And then after that, you start to see it step back down. But just for contractual reasons and just an idea of what we could afford, that's where that 16 a week comes up for us. And we're hoping to stagger those when our code enforcement officer that currently works for us part-time is not in the office. So we'll go from a 1-day-a-week process to now a 3-day-a-week process.
We will keep our
Yes.
1-day-a-week person.
Yes.
and
So we're gonna
3 days
have
a week.
24 hours of code
Yeah.
enforcement.
So, and why is that important? Because that person knows where they are in the process at this point and where the problems may lie. What do you do to correct the problems is some of the things we hope to educate ourselves on from a building code standpoint.
And Corey, do we have, without naming them, do we have like a list of 10 or 15 priorities that we're going to direct them to?
Yes.
It's already been done.
Already been done? Thank you.
Yeah, we've started with a priority list of 10 to begin with, and trying to help us figure out how to navigate really the ones that we saw that have been on this list the longest, that are the most problematic, and it does get rather cumbersome when you start talking about air properties or foreclosure properties or nuisance or abandoned. I mean, these are all different categories of law to navigate through.
So help me, I'm a little slow, I'm older. So all of these old houses that we've got here in Edenton, that nobody is living in, nobody is taking care of the groundwork, with these people, we can be able to get them straightened out.
Yes, sir. That is the goal. And those are the homes
That's
that you
the
talk
goal.
about, the unoccupied, vacant, derelict homes that have gotten into an ownership conundrum or snafu. Those are the ones we started with because it's been too long.
Will our person coordinate with the contract people? They'll work together? Okay.
Everything's gonna be worked together. Myself, Corey, code enforcement, building inspector, we all work together to make sure it's all efficient and, they're not just, out, on their own. We actually
Right.
have a handle of what's going on.
Good.
And one thing to note here, action is required tonight for this. We have been in some small back and forth with the town attorney on getting the final version drafted. So said motion would need to give us the right to approve the agreement once it's finalized with the town attorney, just to make sure that that's noted in the minutes.
Mayor, do you need a motion for this?
I do need a motion.
Mayor, I would move that we accept the contract with any recommendations we have from legal counsel to, as to specific changes.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And the next item is where we go into our items of considered timely and important. Yes, sir.
One thing, Corey, as far as our 5 major parks, have all the surveys been turned in now? Are we going over those and looking at what their needs are in these 5 different parks?
So where we are on that is we did do initial survey that we geared towards most of the adults, most of the folks above the age of 18. We've been working with Councilman Costin and Tyler, our PIO, on working on a kid-friendly version of that.
Okay.
Now that we have seen some parental responses, we would also like to try to get some responses on some of the items that kids would like to see also at the park. We have an event scheduled for the
Next Wednesday.
26th. What is the date?
19th.
19th. I'm glad you brought that up, but we would like the public to know that. We will make sure to continue to share that on Facebook, and particularly with this, every child that we have at one of the 3 locations that we will be visiting, we will be giving out coupons for anyone who completes the survey. We'll have an ice cream truck in town, so the kids get a prize, kind of for helping us out. And so there's certain times, but I'll make sure to send that to everyone so council can be there as well. But we really want council to encourage the kids to be at one of the parks at those locations. We'll have iPads set up with a more kid-friendly version of that survey to see what they may like at their neighborhood park. So we expect to get small pockets from each neighborhood park on site as we move from place to place, because Paxton Lane may have a greater desire than what we see at MLK Park. And so when we talk about just the difference in locations, that local community may want something different that they see that we've identified as a gap, and their park could be improved by adding that. So that's our next step.
So you'll let us know when those events
Yes.
are going to take place?
Yes.
Oh, great, thank you.
Corey, North Edenton, that shopping center, it seems like they're doing a lot of work to it. Do they have a time frame that they're gonna finish that, or?
Yes, so we spoke with the bank the week before the 4th. It was either Thursday or Friday. The bank has committed the money to make the repairs. At this time, although undisclosed, they do have a new property owner that is in the shopping center and retail world. That's what they do, that they're working with. We shared with them that we would continue to work with whoever that may be on potential tenants, that Dwayne and Michelle with the Edenton Joint Partnership, as well as Chess with DDE. We've been really working with our partners from Electric Cities to try to make those contacts, to tell them who are the right tenants and to establish some contacts with them. We should know who that is by the end of this month. The bank shared that with us, and they would like to introduce us to that new property management ownership team by the end of July. So we hope to know who owns the property and what to expect. But the total improvements by the time the shopping center will be just shy of $3 million worth of improvements. And they are, the bank, as well as and this was coming word of mouth through the bank representative, they are very ready to do the right thing when it comes to retail for our location.
They've already done a lot of work to the roof.
Yeah, it looks
And
like it, yeah.
if you go by there, you can see there's a lot of stuff up on top of the roof now to be done, so. Anything else further up here?
I have something. So I attended the 4th of July celebration, and one thing I noticed still was the lighting downtown. Have we got any updates on what we're planning to do as far as the lighting for downtown?
We would like to include those as any of the park updates we have. When we start that construction process, kind of do it all at one time. I know that we still have some areas more towards the lighthouse that is darker at night. We want to try to make some improvements. Some of those lighting restrictions were likely because some of them were cut off for the fireworks. But we want to try to include that as part of some of the recreation improvements. As of now, most of the areas where equipment is, we've made sure those lights are in operable order. But I really would like to see something along some of the walking paths and some of the darker areas, kind of in between those lit areas. Actual ideas of what the fixtures may look like, I'm not at that point yet. But we have an eager, young electric director that we can get right on that.
Right, sounds good.
Okay, anything else from up here?
One thing, I know we're moving along to implement the recycling sometime in October. Any updates on that that we need to know about to see how that is progressing?
David and Mike with Public Works have been trying to run down quotes for trailers. When those big ticket items like that, we go for multiple quotes to make sure we're getting a fair price. They've been working on that. I haven't spoke with David yet to see if they found out any. I don't know if they've submitted any quotes yet to Virginia for the recycle trailer. We're still looking at a fall launch. So we've got about 90 to 120 days to kind of get to that point where we're ready. One of the things I know that Tyler's been working on is going ahead and getting the sticker and the updates that we needed for the can, for the toppers, to kind of put on the lids or either on the underneath of those lids to tell you kind of the do's and don'ts, as well as the door hanger flyer. So at this point, I'm waiting to see a final version of what that may be, and hopefully we can start ordering and getting some of that stuff in, I'd say by the end of this month when the budget season opens. Now it may take us 60 days for the trailer to be on site, but we can at least start with some of that preliminary work and go and get those supplies ordered.
Okay, anything else from up here? All right. Hearing none, we'll close that time of the session, and at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go in closed session
So moved,
for
Mayor. So moved.
personnel matter.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, at this time, I'll ask the public if you will dismiss yourselves.